I knew that I never wanted to focus on the violence. The violence is there and it's present, but it was about the things around the violence and how we live our lives despite that, and the joy that we find despite that.
Hi everyone, I'm Stylish Ram, AsianCultureVulture.com. I'm with Chloe Abrahams, who made The Taste of Mango. Chloe, how are you?
I'm well. I'm still pinching myself that I'm here, actually.
Right, okay, amazing. Tell us a little bit about the title, The Taste of Mango.
So the title comes from a story that I tell at the beginning of the film about how my mum craved mangoes when she was pregnant with me, and my grandma also craved mangoes when she was pregnant with my mum. And so it's alluding to this idea of inheritance, and in this case of something sweet like the taste of mango. But as we continue to watch the film, we learn about the other more painful and difficult things that we might have inherited.
What was the point where you thought, I can make a film about this?
About 5 years ago, my other grandmother passed away, and this grandma was my only living grandparent. And I thought, I don't know how long I have left, and if I don't make this now, I'm never going to. So I just had to start. And when I began, I had no funding. I just had to buy the cheapest camera that I could find and was just documenting whatever I could.
And what was the impulse behind that? Was it really to tell this story about your family and to share it in a way that would allow other people perhaps to also talk about difficult and painful things in their families?
Yeah, exactly. My mum had been talking about these things to me and to other family members for a really long time, and I could tell how painful it was still for her. My initial impetus was to try and help her before anyone else, and maybe I could help her work through this pain. And as I was going on, I realized that so many other people would be affected by these stories. And I felt that there was an opportunity there.
Yeah, I think that's what gives The Taste of Mango its very brave, courageous film in many ways, because it is very difficult subject matter. So how do you, when people ask you what the film is about, how do you get them to be interested in the film without being put off?
It was difficult. It took 5 years, and the film went through many iterations. A few years ago, a cut that I had was so much angrier, and because I was a lot angrier. But I knew that I never wanted to focus on the violence. The violence is there and it's present, but it was about the things around the violence and how we live our lives despite that, and the joy that we find despite that. And so even just in the language that's used in the film, just not recreating the language of violence, and not wanting to re-traumatize in that way, but also to make sure people understand, because it's also important to talk about it. So
yeah, I mean, it is a beautiful family story in many ways, especially the link between your grandmother and the relationship is beautifully covered. Did the camera change the relationships?
I think so, yeah. My mom, she's been coming to festivals with me, and we had a screening.
I'm slightly surprised you're not here today.
I know. She's probably celebrating with some Prosecco somewhere. She said at one of the Q&As a few months ago that, I'm someone who feels a lot and thinks a lot talking about me, and that she never really understood me before, because she just kind of rolled her eyes at me if I talked too much about how I felt and what I thought. And through the making of this film, she said that she got to know me more and could understand that's how I think, and that was incredible. So I think it helped her understand me, it helped me understand her more. It brought us closer together. Yeah.
And how do you look now at your grandmother? She's sadly passed, but it must be very precious to have captured all that on camera.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have known really what was going to happen, and but to now have this record of her, and the time that we spent together is priceless. I'm so glad that we have that.
Can you tell people how you decided I'm going to film this, or was it very deliberate, conscious, saying I'm going to film this? Can you talk about this?
Yeah, with my mom, I could just film all the time, and it was a lot more fluid, and she was, it was just easier. But with my grandma, we did have specific moments where we were filming, and I had to film differently and more detached, and I couldn't be as intimate with her as I could with my mum. But there was so much of these kind of working through these things that had happened in her life that happened off camera. And because it took so many years, it was, a lot of background work, not just in front.
And what made you want to, some of it is filmed in Sri Lanka, and that side of things, you want to show the film in Sri Lanka. How will that, do you have any idea of what it will be like, or do you have any expectations of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I would love to screen it there. It's hard to know what the response is because I come from a diaspora family, and so it is slightly different. But we've shown it to some family members in Sri Lanka, and I think the response has actually been similar to people here. So I would hope that we could get I hope that we could get some
was it
screenings.
important to have the Sri Lanka? Because I think it may not have been that important to have Sri Lanka in the film, I don't know. But you obviously made a decision that it was part of your growing up, or, you know, your outlook now, and the way your mother and your grandmother, you know, are also part of the diaspora and in that way, and culturally you felt it was important to have that, the physical, geographical connection to the country.
Yeah, I think partly because my grandma was was physically so far away from us, and that not just having the emotional distance, but the physical distance of being in these two different countries, two different islands, and how and also I wanted to explore Sri Lanka a bit more. I haven't spent much time there. I've just visited on holiday a few times, and so the way it appears in the film is also kind of how it feels to me, in kind of glimpses and textures and sounds, and rather than getting a full sense of it.
So what would you say to people who have family stories and maybe kind of stumble into it a little bit like you did, in terms of picking up a camera and then realizing there's something that you could kind of and want to share with the rest of how was that process?
What would I say to?
Yeah, what would you say to people who have similar family stories and like the idea of sharing it with a video camera? What would you say to them about starting?
Just do it. It doesn't matter if you don't have any funding. Yeah, I mean, I thought that when I began, I thought that to make a film, you had to have cinematic cameras and a high budget and producers and all these things, and you don't really need any of that. You can just do it with whatever you have, and even if it's an iPhone or like just the material that you have will be important, because especially if it's a personal story, it's the content, it's what is in that material. So nothing else matters. Just do it.
And what next for you? Are you going to stay within the documentary, or what? You have to tell us.
I am beginning to work on a fiction film. It doesn't mean I'm moving to fiction. I feel very fluid in where I want to be genre-wise, and I'd like to keep exploring everything.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.